Hi, it's PeeMonster. First, if you've never been here before, I'm an endospiritual artist, and these are my videos. If you like what you see, you can follow me on Instagram at PeeMonster. I'm on Facebook, which is also PeeMonster. And as of late, I have a Patreon, which I'd also like to promote, which is patreon.com/PeeMonster, where you can not only support an artist, but also have a chance to win original art. Each month, we have the drawing, where you have the opportunity to win an original piece of art, such as these beauties, generally around this size. This month, we gave one away in December. Congrats to the very lucky and beautiful winner. And yeah, each month is a chance to win. As many dollars as you put in is as many tickets that you get towards the drawing. And on top of that, if you contribute $5 a month or more, you will receive a print of each month's drawing. So if you don't win the original, you will still get a print so long as you're contributing $5 or more, which is great. So yeah, feel free to follow me. I hope you like what you see, and let's get into it. So what I'm working on today are these 2.5 by 3.5 little deers. They are kind of experiments for me. I guess I'm kind of leaning towards incorporating more eyes into my work. If you look at my previous work, you'll see a lot of times I leave the eyes out just because throughout my whole life, eyes and eye contact have been something that I struggle with. And to me, I find them very distracting when I incorporate eyes into my work. So it's kind of something that I'm working on exploring. I guess instead of focusing on how distracting they are for me, I like to see what they can add to my work in a way. If I can create eyes in a way that don't distract me. So as I work on this third piece, I'm going to talk about Onision, everyone's favorite narcissist. Honestly, I think he is great. Let me explain. Well, first, if you don't know who Onision is, you're probably going to have to pause this and look him up because I don't want to go into too much detail. I'm not going to include any clips of him here just because I don't feel it's valuable. And of course, by now, if you're watching this, you probably know who he is. He's someone who has been on YouTube for a very long time, I think a decade or maybe more than a decade. An OG YouTuber who has a tremendous following of young girls. At this point in time, he is being exposed, not just because he is surrounded and surrounds himself with young girls, but he also is an abuser. He videotapes his girlfriends and past partners, etc., inappropriately to the point where they are violated. And on top of that, in private, I guess he is a narcissistic abuser. His background aside, because I assume, like I said, that you know who this guy is, why I think he's great. His fan base is primarily young girls. And I think that what's happening right now with him being exposed and his form of abuse and manipulation being brought to light in front of these young girls, I think that is extremely powerful. Because chances are this is the first time a lot of these girls have ever heard of narcissistic abuse or sociopathy or, dare I say it, psychopathy, which I think he's a psychopath. I know a lot of people say sociopath. But I think he's a psychopath, and I'll explain why later. But, yeah, the fact that this is coming to light in front of these young eyes is extremely important. These are girls, chances are they watch his videos because they cannot see the signs of a narcissist, or a sociopath, or a psychopath, whatever you want to call him. They cannot see the signs, so they are charmed by him physically. He has good features. I can see why young girls would be drawn to him. However, I believe he's aware of that as well. He understands psychology of others enough to know how his looks or his charm or behavior might cause one to feel or react towards him, especially young girls, as they are more gullible and inexperienced. So, as this is being exposed, these girls are learning about types of manipulation. They are learning the keywords that are used to describe someone who is an abuser. They are learning what gaslighting is. They are learning about guilt tripping. They are learning all of it. All of it's being spread out in front of them. And some of them may say, you know, I haven't seen the signs. I didn't see the signs all along. And now that I go back and watch his old videos of Shiloh, which was an ex-girlfriend who was severely, I would say severely abused and destroyed by him back then. I mean, she's doing better now, thank God, but I believe at that time she was destroyed by him psychologically. For them to be able to go back now and see all of those things on video, I believe it's a bit of an awakening for them, and also it's a learning experience to see all those signs you didn't see before when you were backing him up and talking about how great he is and how awful Shiloh and the other girls were. All the signs were there. And so I think it's teaching these girls to define what is abuse, what does an abuser look like. This is what abuse looks like. This is what an abuser does. Now, before I continue, as always, at the end of this video, you will be able to see this piece completed. I probably won't finish it throughout this recording because that's just the way my life works. But yeah, you will definitely see the end product at the end. I believe that the young girls that followed him, and there was tons of them, worshipping this man in his silly little videos, I believe that they were probably likely to end up in an abusive relationship themselves. Not saying they're not intelligent, I'm not saying anything like that, I'm just saying the signs were not obvious as they were watching these videos. To me, it was obvious after a certain point this guy had serious issues, so I had to just completely cut it off. I didn't want to see his face because every single time I saw his video, all I see is deception, and I'm not fond. Deception is one of the things I am least fond of on planet Earth. Deception, it just reeks with deception. I couldn't even look at him. It was really something I just didn't want to see, so I cut him off for a while. And then, lo and behold, everyone else has caught on, and he is being exposed for what he truly is, and his fans are becoming aware. So, as I was saying, these girls were probably likely to be deceived by a narcissist or a sociopath or a psychopath in their own lives if they were charmed by Onision, if that makes sense. Not saying all of them, I'm just saying it was probably likely that they could have easily fallen victim to someone like Onision. Maybe you'll agree. If you disagree, please feel free to comment and talk about it. I'm open to learning. I love psychology. I love what makes people work, and I love hearing what people have to say on the matter. Obviously, I've been following it pretty closely for a while now. So yeah, these teenage girls, I believe a lot of them will be able to avoid ending up in the same situation as Onision's ex-girlfriends, and I will just say ex-wife because I don't think she's coming back. I believe personally, and I don't have any proof of this, but I've been saying it for a while, I don't even think she's in the house anymore. Kai. I don't even think she's in the house anymore. And I don't think he knows that she's probably, if she's not in the house, she's probably not coming back. That's just my opinion. I don't think she's been there for quite some time now. So this generation of girls, these teenage fans that have been following him, even non-teenage, even older ones, because I know a lot of his fans that started out as teenagers are adults now, and they may or may not have experienced narcissistic abuse firsthand, but I think now a lot of them know what it looks like, which is awesome. I'm so glad it's happening so out in the open, and that so many young girls get to see. Because if you haven't dealt with a sociopath or a narcissist or a psychopath, whatever word you'd like to use, not all quite the same thing, but they generally apply to this situation in my opinion. You may not know the degree of trauma it can cause to a person. I have dealt with it. I experienced it face to face. I would not say to the degree of someone like Onision. He is something else. I'll explain why I think he's a psychopath later. But yeah, my experience with someone who had a narcissistic personality disorder was a huge trauma. I mean, for the most of my life, I've been pretty naive, like extremely naive. And, you know, it's not something that I had encountered before. And so when this person messaged me, I believe at the time I was posting emo stuff on Facebook and whatnot, and this person was an acquaintance. If you've been following my art for a while, you probably know this person. I'm not going to say any names, but yeah, we had never talked until I was making those emo posts on Facebook. He messaged me, and he says, "You're very loyal. That's the first thing he said to me. You're very loyal. And from there, we started talking. And I think the first thing that should have been a red flag, but I mean, I didn't have an Onision growing up to witness get exposed as a narcissist, so I didn't even know that something such as that existed. To me, I thought people were honest, they say what they mean, and that most people were generally trustworthy. So I guess what should have been a red flag, hindsight, is that one of the first things he said to me, other than "you're very loyal," he says, in my artwork, he said he had seen my artwork over the past, I guess, decade. He was also a fellow artist, we'd shown together before, etc. And he says, I always felt like the boys in your drawings were me. You know, at the time I didn't think too much of what he said, but now when I go back, I realize that I was being manipulated. My art being something that is the closest thing to my heart, like straight from my soul. And he's immediately hijacked it because he knows this is a direct connection to her soul. And if I say, these are me, I see myself, she will see me as whatever you want to call it. I don't know the word, but hopefully that makes sense. So hindsight, that should have been a massive red flag. Nowadays, I know that. I know that for sure. I don't, you know, I appreciate compliments of every kind, but when it comes to, let me move this over so you can see a little bit better. There. So yeah, he says, I see myself in your art, basically. I feel like you're drawing me. But it wasn't even suggested. It was more like he was forcing that on me. Like, hey, your art is me. Kind of like that. Or that's how I interpreted it. You know, back then I probably thought it was sweet. I didn't think too much of it, I don't think. But I was probably a little bit charmed further on into our interaction that he felt that. Yeah, I don't have a desire to go too much into detail about my own experience with a narcissist, just because at this point I've completely cut him out of my life. Of course, he's probably watching this. Hi. He's probably watching this because he knows his name. It says narcissist in the title, so he's like, oh, this is probably about me. Yes, it is. Another thing that happened is very soon after we started messaging, he began sending pictures. So to me, hindsight, that's probably all he wanted to do, was to send pictures. And upon receiving a compliment or any type of positive, comment from me, he would act like he wasn't aware of the things I was complimenting him on. So he is what you would call a covert narcissist, where he truly believed he deserved to be worshipped. Like, it came out many times that he truly believed he was, better than other artists. He believed he deserved more recognition for what he did. When he saw artists that did something similar, like he would do this thing where the layers were overlapped, like you can see multiple layers of the same person in his drawing. And I don't think that he liked when other artists would do that and get recognized for it, because he wasn't getting that recognition. It took me a while to catch on to that, what he was complaining about. Yeah, hindsight, again, I didn't think too much of those comments that he would make, but now that I think back to it, yeah, he definitely felt he was deserving of fame and fortune. So another thing that he would do is, after a certain point, I guess to try and get rid of me, like this is much further on into our interaction. Well, first of all, he was chatting to multiple women. And for me, for that, I kind of blame myself, because one of the other first things he said to me was that he likes multiple women. And to me, I'm thinking, okay, well, he is saying this, but he is approaching me because he wants to be different. And I feel embarrassed to admit that I fell for something like that. I feel embarrassed to admit that I did not take that seriously, because in my mind, in my innocence, naivety, whatever you want to call it, to me, people don't do things they don't believe in. So if he's approaching me knowing that I'm a person that, is very sensitive, he knew I'd seen hard things, like he absolutely knew. But the thing with narcissists, they prey on people who have gone through hard things because they see them as vulnerable. They see it as an opportunity for themselves to gain some firm footing in that person's life because that person is fragile at that point in their life. And they're just like, hey, I'm going to establish myself as a rock for this person and I'm going to get what I want. And that's essentially what he did. So yeah, to me, him saying that he likes multiple women and then still coming after me, knowing what my stance was, in my naivety, I thought, oh, he is so interested in me that he is willing to change those things. He's so interested in me that he is no longer interested in those other women. And he totally made it a point to make it look like he was not interested in other women. He had friends that he would talk about and then tell me horrible things about them. And sometimes it was to the point, you can't see that, can you? I'll move it down. Sometimes it was to the point where I felt bad for them just because it seemed like he was too quick to say hostile things about someone he called a friend. Now that I look back, that trash talk about his other friends or other women that were in his life was his way of gaining more of me, if that makes sense. It was his way of gaining more of me because he understood that if I talk bad about these other women, she will know that I'm no longer, or she will think that I'm no longer doing or saying anything inappropriate with these other women. That was the goal. His goal. So yeah, another red flag would be if they talk trash about their exes, for sure. Some exes really aren't that great, but if he is still talking to these people, exes or other women in his life, whatever you want to call it, whoever it is, if he is talking bad about them to you while still maintaining some sort of contact or relationship with these people that you're not fully aware of what's being said, and they still seem like friends, I think that's a pretty big red flag. That, coupled with a bunch of other things, could be considered decent red flags. But then the thing is, with someone who is a narcissist or a sociopath, I think a lot of them will know that if they say bad things about someone, that you will think bad about them. Like, they really do not want you to think bad things about them, especially when they're first trying to establish that connection with you. They will say anything to get on your good side and not trigger your instinct. And they'll know, subconsciously, they will know what is safe to say and what is not safe to say. And they will maintain that for as long as they can to get what they want, or until they can't anymore and it pops out or whatever. But they know what to say. They usually know what to say. In my extreme naivety, he didn't even have to try that hard, honestly. There was no red flags for me because I didn't know at the time what people were capable of. I didn't know that type of evil truly existed. That was a distant fantasy, like a movie. This only happens on TV. But no, that's how some people are. So it was very easy for him. I'm not gonna lie, it was very easy for him to manipulate me as someone as naive as I was. Then there were also times where he'd say good things about other girls. And that was further in to our interaction. And he would say good things. Now, the reason why he would say good things about other girls, there was a few different reasons. I believe that there were times where the MO was to hurt me, to make me feel insecure, which worked quite a bit. I'm a person who had previously very low self-esteem, and he totally took advantage of that. So he would say good things about other girls to make me feel insecure. And then the other reason why he would say good things about other girls is to triangulate. So I remember one day, I'm not sure where this is going to fit in, but we'll just go with this because I remember it. I remember one day he said to me, have any of your collectors tried to introduce you to other artists, like for relationship wise? I'm not sure how to word that, but like he says, have any of your collectors ever tried to introduce you to other artists and saying that you should date them or whatever? And I was just like, no. That was very strangely specific. And at that time, he was talking to me less. I could see, like on Facebook, I could see his little activity. Back then, it was more accurate than it is now, I think. And I would see his activity to where he's present and chatting with someone, but it's not me. So it was as I noticed that he came to me. Like, I'm sending messages and not getting responses, basically. And then that's when he says to me, have any of your collectors ever introduced you, blah, blah, blah. And, being the person I was, I didn't see it as a tactic. He could have been trying to get rid of me at that point, but I'm not sure. I could have just been like a play thing, like how cats play with their food before they eat it or whatever. Just messing with my head. And I said, no, that never happened to me. Why would that happen? And then he reveals that one of his collectors has tried to introduce him to this other artist who I'd never heard of, and saying that they should, connect socially, and that it turns out this is what he was doing. He was now manipulating this new person in a horrible way. And I don't want to talk a lot about that because I respect her a lot. And, that's her story to tell, not mine. But yeah, so basically what happened was he started becoming her for her, saying that he liked to do things that she liked to do, when in reality he told me he was a completely opposite person, which was me. Like, he said, for me, he was telling me what an introvert he is, and how shy he is, how he keeps his thoughts to himself, etc. But for her, he's saying, oh yeah, I like to go out and party, we're gonna dance, total chameleon. That's as far as I will go into detail about that, because I do want to respect this young lady. But yeah, another red flag is they try to become you. They think they're exactly like you, but the reality is they like something about you that they wish they could have. So my shyness and my introvertedness and my quietness and the fact that I never showed pictures of myself previously with my art, I think he liked that mysteriousness of me, so he tried to become me. And he tried to say, this is me too. Oh, I'm like that. This is how I am too, So yeah, red flag, they claim to be you, basically. They try to mirror you so that you would think they are like soulmate, etc. They want to get you really strapped in so that as they are dangling you along, they can make you feel pain, they can make you feel great. They have that power. It's totally a control thing. So they want you to fall as hard as possible so that they can just wipe the floor with you whenever they feel like it. And so another thing that this person would do, or did, which is now a huge red flag, there was love bombing, of course. Love bombing, giving you tons of attention, as much as they can, pretending to be interested in anything you have to say, like you're not some idiot, especially if you're someone that had low confidence and didn't typically say much. They will pretend like you are, like angels sing when you speak your mind. They'll treat you like that, and it's like, oh, this person really understands me. But that's not the case. So yeah, the opposite of the love bombing phase is not just the part where they start poking at you and just seeing what happens, like ignoring your messages and then ignoring you, and then suddenly they pop out of nowhere and they're like, hey, I want to spend time with you, etc. And you're like, oh, he's back, he was just busy, he just had things to do. But reality is he's exploring other options, of course, and messing with you because he might have to get rid of you. And so, yeah, that next part, there's messing with you and then there's dropping you completely. And I think when he got to the point of wanting to drop me completely, like when he was making plans to go be with this other girl, like he was gonna go visit her, like he started trying to get rid of me. And I believe he did that by sending me very unflattering photos of himself. I remember one he was like in the car with his son and his hair was like flying everywhere and it's just like, ah. And it was a very unflattering picture. But hindsight, I see exactly what he's trying to do. And I think people who do that as a way to get themselves out of a relationship that they helped create is very weak. If you cannot just go to a girl and say, I am no longer interested, and I'm saying this because less people should do it. I don't think it's a good way to handle your situation. If you want to end something, give the person the respect of just saying, I need to end this, I need to move on. Not taking the short, not even a shortcut. I think you have to work harder to trick someone into not liking you anymore. I think that takes way more work than just saying, hey, I think I'm done. So, yeah. I mean, and not just men. I'm speaking from my experience, so bear with me here. People who do that. I mean, if you're a person that does that, you might want to rethink it because it doesn't say anything good about you. Own your situation. You've got to step up. Not only that for yourself, but this person. Have the respect of another person who has given you their time. Have the respect to go to them and say, I think I'm done. Not just stop returning messages, not send ugly pictures of yourself to get them to turn off. Use your words. I mean, we're people here. We use words. We can do that. So yeah, another thing that I noticed when I met this person in real life, I watched them interact with other people. That's something you really want to pay attention to. The way they treat other people in general, but also I noticed when he's talking to them, he will look very uncomfortable. Like, I admired how he always knew what to say. Like, he could talk to people, and it's just like, wow, he says he's just like me, but he can talk to people. He talks very well to people. I remember thinking that, like, very distinctly. Like, he knew what to say. He always knew what to say. But when the other person was talking, he would be uncomfortable, like, in his seat. Like, he'd constantly be like, and just like, and like sighing like he was bored. But it wouldn't match up with what was being said in the conversation. So yeah, I think that's a lesser known trait of someone who is narcissistic. They tend to look uncomfortable when other people are talking. They themselves are good at talking, but when other people are talking, it's like they become bored. I don't think that's quite the word. I'm not sure if I would call it boredom on his part, but more like, that's the only way he knew how to react socially to someone else's talking, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. If anyone has better words to explain what I'm trying to say, that would be ace. Just put it in the comments, because I would love to know how to explain that a little bit better as well. But yeah, he'd be like changing his position, like crossing his legs and sitting on his leg and just like this, and the person's talking and he's just, sighing and just like, looking really like what the person is saying is tedious, but it didn't match up with what the person was saying. The person wasn't saying anything that would cause a person to react that way. So that's something, when I witnessed it, I just thought maybe I wasn't understanding the conversation they were having. Yeah, because I feel like a lot of the things they were saying at that time I couldn't hear. Partially because the place we were in was loud, but the words were just too fast for me, and there's people I don't know about that they're talking about. So I'm just kind of sitting there eating and letting them talk. So I guess I was kind of detached from the situation to begin with. But it just didn't seem to match up. From what I knew of what they were saying, it didn't seem to match up with the conversation. So yeah, that's another thing that they will do. And on a side note, I would say if you're someone who's trying to date or meet someone, you'll probably want to be aware. Like, just pay attention to how they treat other people. I remember when I was first met my buddy, I paid very close attention. Like, we would be walking and it's just like, okay, I see a homeless guy coming towards us. I'm going to pay attention to what he does, what my buddy does. And, things like that, little things like that are what you want to observe, because this will tell way more about the person than they will ever tell you with their mouth to your face if they are trying to manipulate you. And of course, my buddy just gives a nod to the homeless guy. Everything was fine. But yeah, that's one thing you can possibly do. Pay attention to how they treat people in positions of service, like a restaurant. Pay attention to that. Pay attention to the tip. Pay attention to the amount of respect, but also consider that they will do anything, and subconsciously know what will or will not set off your alarm bells. So they may simply say hello to a stranger because you're there. instead of spitting on them like they would usually do. You never know. Just watch, pay attention, and everything. Don't let any one thing define this person. It is a combination of things. And when you keep notes on all these different things that you notice, you put 2 and 2 together in the end. And I think it will be pretty clear the type of person that you're possibly dealing with, because there are some things that just can't be hidden. And once you know what to look for, I think it's a lot easier to avoid situations you don't want to get into. So I guess I'm kind of remembering a lot of this out of order. But another thing that this person would do, or did on several occasions, is try and pit me against other people that they are involved with. That's where I was going. Triangulation. That's exactly where I was going. Triangulation. That's where a narcissist does that to create some kind of, I guess in a way it's kind of to throw you off, but also it makes them feel superior, important. And it's basically where they will, I guess for lack of better words, it's like they will put 2 people in the same room that they're involved with and, just kind of try to see what happens. Like, I think to them it is a turn on to see these 2 people interact that are also interacting with him, that he's been able to keep secret from one another for the most part. I think they get off to that. I don't know why, but he did that. He definitely did that. The first girl, I think she's well aware. I mean, we have talked. I think she knows exactly what was going on now that we have talked. But there was another person who, unfortunately, I think he went out of his way to cause issues between us and to really stress this person out. And it was clear to me that she was very stressed about certain things. And then he would come to me and complain and say awful things about her. But then I guess he would do the same, going to her and saying awful things about me. I mean, I can only assume that because that's what they do. I don't think I was sheltered from anything. I'm pretty sure he had a lot to say about me to this person. And, I remember I had some minor interactions with this other person. And since he was a mutual friend, he's aware of these interactions that I'm having. And I guess what he did was create dispute to where this person may have had very little patience for me based on the things that he has said or the fact that we were involved. I guess that seemed to kind of bother that person, to be in a situation of not knowing. Basically the same thing he was doing to me. To be in a situation of not knowing to what degree that this person is involved with other people, etc. So my minor interaction with this other person, I guess, based on what he said, which could be totally false, he told me that this person is very upset at me based on that interaction that I had with them. And I was just like, well, it's not something I could have helped, I'm trying. And I tried to be successful at this interaction. And then he says, I remember exactly what he said. He says, I hope you can understand why she's upset with you. I'm not sure the psychological term to call that. I'm not sure what you would call that, but he and Onision did this too, based on the testimony of the girls with Chris Hansen. He did that too. He would create little conflicts in the background and be like, oh, Kai's mad at you. Oh, Billy's mad at you. Set Kai and Billy against each other, when in reality, to the point where they're not even talking to each other in the same house, because Onision is saying, she's mad about this. Oh no, she's mad about this. And there's just like this invisible war going on between them, but neither of them know why. But he liked that. He created that tension between them. I don't know what it's called at this moment. I don't know why it's done, but this gentleman also did that to me and this other person. He tried to create tension, and he says, I hope you understand why she's upset at you. And of course, I didn't fully understand. I mean, basically what happened was not something most people would be truly upset about, I'm not going to go into detail of what it was, but just trust me, it wasn't really something that most people would get pissed off about. But he becomes short with me, and he's just like, I hope you understand why she's upset at you. And I'm just left crying, and I don't understand why. And then like suddenly he's ganged up on me with this person, and they're both against me. And it made me feel insecure. Maybe that was the plan. Maybe that was the whole point of him saying it, just to pull the rug out and make me feel like I'm not liked by this person who I admired, which was the other person that he said was mad at me. This person that I admire greatly. And he's just like, I hope you understand why she's mad at you. So, yeah, I don't know what was said on his end, but I think he probably fed her as much garbage as he was feeding me. Because he's full of garbage. Absolutely full of garbage. We'll call him the garbage man. So, I guess pushing ahead, because I can't quite think of any other red flags that I had in dealing with this person right now. Maybe later on something will come up. When I finally decided that I was no longer going to pursue anything with this person, you know, I kind of just started minding my own business, focusing on my own work. I stopped including him. And I think when he started to see that I was no longer pursuing anything from him, like I wasn't sending any messages that wouldn't be returned, I was on my own. I was in my own space, focusing on my own stuff. What he did, and what a narcissist and what a narcissist would typically do, is they start to reach out again. Because when they see that they have lost you, or that you have moved on, or are no longer interested, or no longer affected by their actions, they start to poke you and be like, hey, you're really great. They try to say nice things to you. And they call it hoovering. Like they'll try to hoover you like a vacuum, suck you back in to make you think that they truly care and have cared all along. And they're just like, oh, hey, how's it going? Try to make their way back into your life to suck you dry a little bit more. And I think at that time, I had said to him, you never have to feel bad about reaching out to me. Because I was at a point in my mind and in my own development where I was comfortable with myself. And I felt confident. And I understood what had happened. And I guess I was at a place of peace. I had a bit of a spiritual awakening myself, and, just wanting to generally be a loving person to society. I said to him, you don't have to feel ashamed about messaging me, is what I said to him. If you need a friend, I'm here. I'll usually always listen. That's just who I am. Yeah, that's how it pretty much ended. Oh, and I remember when I had evolved and was live streaming on Twitch, he sends me a message out of the blue after like a long time of no contact, and he says, you have beautiful hands. And I'm just like, oh, thanks. But, I had already like completely moved on, so the conversation didn't even go anywhere. It came to the point where I purposely would not ask him anything or pursue any type of dialogue with him, just because I didn't really need this person in my life. And what caused me to completely block him, I hadn't blocked him at that point. I had just moved on psychologically and evolved spiritually to where I can handle, this person's existence. What led to me blocking him completely is when I started going to therapy and discovered that I had Asperger's. And when I mentioned in my Asperger video about people who did not nice things to me, that is probably the biggest one, because as I came to realize these things about myself, like in my 30s, I also came to realize that this person took severe advantage of my... They took advantage of the fact, I guess the way I thought of it at the time, because I was still trying to come to terms with this Asperger's, I feel like he saw me as stupid. Like all the times that he says, oh, you're special, you're this great person, he was really thinking, this one is really stupid. So I think that realization caused me to cut him off completely. Because I realized that, he didn't make a mistake. He knew that I would be a perfect victim because I was stupid in his eyes. He probably thought I was extremely stupid. Naive. Very naive, as is common with Asperger. I was naive. But yeah, that's when I just decided, you know, I'm at a place in my life and I've come to a very, very liberating realization with the Asperger's that everything suddenly makes complete sense. And for people to use it as a means of violating me, I will not have it. And I will not allow those people to have anything to do with my life. Like, as far as I'm concerned, he's not dead to me, but I'm dead to him. Like, I don't even care enough to even say he's dead to me. I don't exist to him. I'm happy not existing to him. Like, he doesn't even deserve to know anything about my existence. So, there we go. That's when I deleted him off everything, stopped following, liberated myself. You know, I think a lot of women who fall victim to people like that feel like they can't speak. In some cases, I would say it's calculated, the type of people they will target, because they know they won't speak. And yeah, I think that's where I was for a while, but, you know, with everything happening right now, I think it's important for people to speak. I almost said women, but not just women. I think people should speak. Don't be afraid to speak. I think with people like the narcissist I talked about and with like Onision, I think we are up against something that we should talk about. And that's why I think it's great that this is being talked about. I think it's great that Onision is such a public figure to where his exposure and downfall is very loud and can be seen by a lot of people. Especially young girls, because if you didn't notice, narcissists and narcissistic sociopaths tend to target younger women and girls because they are inexperienced and, I guess, also naive, to where they think, oh, I can fix this person or I can change this person, but not just that, they think this person is genuine, despite if he does this and this and this, it's because he really cares or he's very sensitive. When his reality is actually something much more grim. So, I guess I promised I would say why I think Onision is a psychopath and not just a sociopath. To me, it's apparent that he may be married, like he will marry these people, but I don't think it's because he forms bonds with them. Like, I guess by standards, if you read the definition of a sociopath versus a psychopath, a sociopath can to some degree form bonds, but a psychopath does not. And the reason why I say Onision did not form any type of bond with Kai other than the physical is because he never once demonstrated that type of bond with her. To me, it seemed more that she was convenient. Like, he still takes stabs at her. In the public eye, he stabs at her, like saying that when he first met her, he wasn't attracted to her, you know? It's on one of his videos somewhere. He said that to the public about his wife. And most people will say it's harmless. Oh, guys, you know, not everyone experiences love at first sight. But with someone like Onision, that is calculated. That is a calculated way to keep her down. Because she's talking about how much she was attracted to him, like her messages to him as a teenager through his Facebook and everything was a very obsessed fangirl. Like, she worshipped the ground that he walked on, the keyboard that he touched, she worshipped, you know? And yeah, I don't think that it was a case of him forming a bond with this person. I think it's just that she was one that was securable. Like, they'll always secure something at home while they do all the other dirty deeds that they do. And she was secure because she tolerated a lot of his crap from the beginning. She tolerated it and she stayed around. She was convenient. I do not doubt that he treated her the same way that that Shiloh says that she was treated. Except maybe it was a little bit easier because Lainey seems like she goes along with what he says and what he does. Obviously. I think that's why she's in the situation that she's in right now. But yeah, I believe she tended to go along more with what he's saying and fight him less. You know, he had a pattern of having his exes shave their heads. The poor girl, Shiloh, he forced her to shave her head. And then, you know, I don't think it's a coincidence that his most recent wife, Kai, also ended up cutting her hair and, you know, just overall becoming defeminized gradually to the point where she's saying she is trans. I know it's an unpopular opinion, but I don't believe she is trans. You can't speak for people in that respect, I guess. I believe that she is someone who's dealing with trauma. Lots of trauma. She has been hurt by him. He has had affairs. I believe she has created this persona for herself to escape something that she can't, that she couldn't physically escape. I believe she created that persona for herself of Kai to... Kai is Lainey, by the way. I believe that she created Kai as a form of escapism, so she didn't have to be the person that got hurt by Greg all the time. Does that make sense? Sorry, I'm in the editing stages and I realized what I'm trying to say. I believe she created Kai as a means of not having to deal with the pain of being defeminized by Greg, as he has, Greg Onision, as he has done to his previous girlfriends and wives. He has a pattern of defeminizing, and I feel like in a way she coped with that by herself becoming a man, so she doesn't have to feel the pain of being defeminized by him, if that makes sense. And I don't blame her at all. I simply say her. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I just say her because that's how I knew her. I've seen her. I never followed Kai. I've only known Lainey as Lainey. Lainey was Lainey, and I see a person who's a victim of trauma, dealing with it ongoing and needs to escape any way she knows how, because I don't believe there was a proper way for her to actually leave Greg without feeling in danger herself. Like, he's a manipulator. He will rub it in her face how she's betraying him and just make it really hard for her to get out the door. Just psychological abuse and manipulation. It's something I can't really put into words, but just really calculated guilt tripping and gaslighting that she would have to endure if she had ever truly wanted to leave. Which I think actually happened when he cheated on her with Billy. But yeah, back to why I think he's a psychopath. Another thing that psychopaths do is they can calculate. Rather than his relationship with Lainey being an emotional thing or some kind of bond, I think it's calculated. Because Lainey, 1, she was super young. 2, she is secure. 3, she had aspects of her that were, I guess, sort of tomboyish. 4, she complied with bringing other women into the house when he's telling her, oh, you gotta date women. And he knew that he was actually just bringing these women in for himself. It had nothing to do with Kai or what Kai needs or, etc. He totally played it off as that, but it was pressure for her to do this, and he knew it was for him. The fact that Lainey could be manipulated so easily to do these things for him, it was less work for him. He didn't have to break her like he had to break Shiloh and the other girls. He didn't have to break her because she was easily pushed in the direction that he would be able to build a plan around to get what he wanted. So I think he's highly calculated. I don't think he's super intelligent, but we're referring to like emotional intelligence when people say that. No, he's not emotionally intelligent. What sociopath or psychopath is, honestly. However, I think he understands subconsciously the psychology behind younger girls or naive girls, or how his looks portray, just like I said at the beginning, how his looks will affect the way he's received by that audience. So you'll notice in his videos he will like wear a certain shirt or have his hair styled a certain way to, okay, this is a video where I'm going to be a good boy, and it's just like, guys, blah, blah, blah. But then when he's trying to be like a shaggy bad boy, he'll have his hair going swooped that way, and then like black and white or heavy contrast, and he's just like, yeah, it kind of looks like he has eyeshadow on, but I don't know. He knew how to manipulate that naive audience. to get what he wanted. So I think to some degree he understands psychology, but not outside of patterns. So yeah, I think he's very capable of plotting and planning. I think a lot of what he did in the public eye was orchestrated, heavily orchestrated. Cheating on his wife was heavily orchestrated. He had his wife bring these girls in that he wanted and claim they were for her. But then he would get himself involved to the point where he fooled this girl into allowing him to cheat on his wife. And so that she would be blamed for it, number one. And also, he could easily say, oh, I didn't know, or oh, there was a misunderstanding, and win his wife back ultimately, which happened. They split up for a while, and then suddenly she's back, and it's just, well, this guy has just very blatantly cheated on you and blamed someone else and pretended he had no idea what was going on, when in reality, it was his plan from the get-go to get into a situation where he could cheat and then wash his hands and say, you know, that wasn't my intention. He orchestrated that. I believe a psychopath can do that. A sociopath may not be able to do that based on Google definitions of what a psychopath and sociopath are. And the last reason why I believe he's a sociopath is the enjoyment of seeing others suffer. I mean, he has a track record of horrible abuse to these women. And on top of that, he has a record of Twitter tweets where he says stuff that are very inappropriate. I guess it's too inappropriate for me to repeat here, but it's basically along the lines of, I'm your master and you're a piece of trash on your knees, and, you know, stuff, very vulgar stuff, to where I'm not going to repeat it verbatim, but it was basically to that effect. Like, he enjoyed seeing this person broken and suffering and on the floor and, you know, able to control them and have them please him sexually while being so broken themselves. He has said a lot of things to that effect. And also, not just his Twitter posts, but I mean, that's essentially what he did to these girls. He broke them, he tried to break them and put them in that position, and he enjoyed it. He enjoyed having Shiloh's entire career. She's a singer. He enjoyed Shiloh's entire career destroying, and himself being the replacement of that part of her life. Like, he enjoyed taking that from her. He enjoyed seeing her cry. He videotaped her in pain. He videotaped her having a seizure, and he enjoyed that. There was nothing in his head that said, I need to call for help. He was enjoying watching this person suffer. That's why I think it's clear he is more than likely more of a psychopath than a sociopath. He claims to be into bondage and S&M, and I'm not saying everyone who's into bondage and S&M is a sociopath, a psychopath, but these are things, like I said before, you put all of these things together to create a profile of this person. And because of his interest in, like, dominating and bondage and S&M, alongside all the other things that he does, to me it is a much larger issue. So I would call him a psychopath. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know. That's just the conclusion that I've come to. Though there are professionals out there who have commented on this and said they don't believe he's a psychopath. I'm not a professional. I never will claim to be, but I am a thinker. And I think he shows plenty of signs of being a psychopath rather than a sociopath. I think people are a little bit afraid of the word psychopath because we have so many movies out that depict them as, like, murderers and stuff, but that's not accurate. They do like to see people suffer to some degree, but not all psychopaths are murderers. So, I don't know, I'm not afraid to say it. I think he's a psychopath, full-blown psychopath. You know, I'm just thinking back, like, I went through a lot of pain dealing with this person that I had mentioned before, this narcissist. I'm not even going to say my narcissist or my narc, what you people usually say. He's not mine. I don't want him. It's the narcissist that I dealt with. When I'm thinking back to just even after I had stopped chasing him, like when I found my own place and was focusing on my work, I was still very much hurting inside. Like, I still fought with the thought that something I did was not good enough. like something I did to destroy this person's interest in me. And that really weighed down on me. But when I remember one day I was looking online and I came across this forum where someone had posted on a forum describing a situation they were in with a similar situation with a gentleman who was doing these things to her and she didn't understand why. And then one of the responses was so eye-opening. That is the first time I ever heard of narcissistic abuse. That is the first time I heard of a narcissist. And when I read that description and she explains what they do and how none of it can be helped and that it has nothing to do with you and everything to do with this person and their own psychological issues, that was a game changer for me. Like my life from there went, like I had gone this far when I broke away and had my own spiritual awakening. But when I read that post, my life went like this. It was so eye-opening and I completely flushed that from my system. I realized this has nothing to do with me and everything to do with that person and their own struggles and their own insecurity. And I never looked back. It was so liberating. I will never forget that moment. Learning what narcissist was and that it's a thing and that I was no longer the reason for what this person did. And I no longer had to beat myself up or feel like I didn't have to feel like I wasn't worth loving or that anything that I would do would cause someone to run away if I try to open up to someone again, you know? That's a lot of weight to carry. But as soon as I learned what narcissism was, I was able to let that go completely. I'll never forget that post. And you know, the sad thing is that our mutual friend here, the second one that I mentioned, a lot of what he did and what he said has created a massive rift to the point where I'm afraid to even approach her. I probably won't, but I have tremendous respect for her, and I hope that the things that were said about me in his triangulations and whatnot are not things that she would... I hope she can see it for what it is. As far as I know, they are still in touch. But I have tremendous respect for this person. But he made sure of it that would never be seen. And that we would never have a positive interaction. But yeah, that's where we are. The best thing you can do is be aware. Educate yourself. Watch videos like this one. Especially if you are someone with Asperger's, my gosh. We are prime targets for people like this. Because a lot of times with Asperger's, we struggle with reading emotions and faces, and we can be naive. But I think if you learn the signs, pay attention. I have this saying now that I developed after this incident with this gentleman. When people tell you who they are, believe them. Don't make excuses. When people tell you who they are, believe them. That is such an important thing because it's so easy to doubt ourselves. Especially when we have suspicions and, red flags popping out here and there and we feel like, oh, I'm just not reading it correctly, or, maybe I'm misunderstanding what he's trying to say to me. He wouldn't say that to me. No, when people tell you who they are, believe them. And don't for 1 second feel like someone else is so valuable that you can't let them go. You are valuable. You are number one. When you learn to love yourself the way you want to love someone else, it becomes easier to not allow yourself to be victimized. Absolutely love yourself. You have to learn. No one's going to do it for you. No one's going to love you more than you can possibly love yourself. That is a fact. So, if you are someone who is struggling with narcissistic partners and whatnot, love yourself, number one. Number two, pay attention. Pay close attention to the signs. Number three, listen to your heart. I feel very strongly about listening to one's heart because it's so easy to discredit ourselves and our instinct and our intuition, But over the years, I've learned, you know what? If I can trust anyone on this planet, it's myself. If my heart is telling me one thing, I'm gonna listen. I will always listen. There are too many times that I didn't listen and it turned out to be something I should have listened to. But yeah, always listen. Give yourself a little bit of credit. We have a very powerful instinct, Asperger's or not. I think to some degree there is an instinct there for most people to where you know things before they happen. You just we're very quick to discredit ourselves. And we can't do that. And I think another reason why we end up in crappy situations is the fear of being alone with ourselves. Like the fear of not feeling love. The fear of not getting in a relationship and not having someone, you know, we have to not have that fear, because when we have a fear, narcissists can smell that from a mile away, and that will be the string that they dangle you from throughout your interaction with them. Okay, so I expected to say a little bit more, but I think I'm going to have to cut this off because I have a baby in the next room and she's probably ready for I gotta get some dinner. Yeah, hopefully you found something valuable in this ramble. Hopefully you have something to say. If you do, please comment below. I'm a huge advocate for, anti-narcissistic abuse. I don't like it. You know, and if you expected a little bit more bullying of Onision here, I don't do that. I think he's someone who has done some very crappy things, but I'm not out to also do crappy things or say crappy things to also abuse someone. That's not who I am, and that's not what I'm about. So I'd rather focus on the psychology of it and whatnot. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you like what you see here as far as my art goes. This is what I do. And yeah, feel free to share anything you're thinking. I'm open to all of it. I will consider everything. Thank you so much. Here is the completed version of this new piece here. Have a great day. I'd just like to say thank you so much for watching this video. And if you liked it, I would very much appreciate if you hit the thumbs up. I think it seems to help in this YouTube world. If not, just let me know what you did not like and what you would like to see, and that would really help me shape this channel. Thank you so much for taking the time, and stay tuned for what's to come. Thank you so much. Bye.